really excited with the way this show's been going. I've been really enjoying it.
Have you gotten a lot of views on your YouTube channel?
Well, the thing is, I've got to start promoting the Modern Dad Counts. I got to get a channel that on a channel of its own, and I've been having trouble setting that up. So I don't know why I keep setting it up as my own channel, and I want it to be a separate channel. So I don't know. I'm having some struggles with that. So that's the issue. But I've been
Yeah.
getting a lot more
Is it
people.
because you can only have one?
No, you can have multiple.
Can you? Because I had the same problem, and I just did with the blending the family. It kind of leapfrogs my other um, YouTube channel.
Hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. I have to. Michael's done it, like with three different ones. So
Okay.
he's got to walk me through it. He's got to hold my hand. So, um, at any rate, so this week I really wanted to talk about, like us being dads and dealing with the holidays and the stresses that come along with all of that. Buying all these gifts, spending all that money. There's just going to different families' houses, trying to coordinate everything. If you're in like a blended family situation, like Tommy, you were talking earlier in an email you sent me about, how do you take traditions, create new traditions for your family. One of the struggles I have is dealing with, because I'm divorced, I have two ex-wives, therefore I have two sets of families that I have to coordinate with my kids, and then coordinate that with my families. My parents are divorced, so it's like you got all their parties and their things going on. And this season is like for me. So I have a feeling I'm not alone in that struggle.
I think Jay's dog feels your pain.
No, that was my dog.
Oh, it was. I noticed it kind of moaned right at the perfect time when Chris was talking about how the season is really kind of painful at times.
Yeah, we're all feeling it. One thing to keep in mind when you have all of these competing demands from your own family or a spouse's family or an ex's family or whatever it is that your primary obligation is actually to yourself, and it's to do what makes you feel good and happy and healthy and productive and fulfilled during the holiday season. And that drawing the boundaries, even though in fact, I just wrote an article about this on relationships for the Good Men Project, but it holds true here too. Drawing boundaries can feel really uncomfortable because you think that you're hurting people and you think that you're making them angry and that you're letting them down and that you're disappointing them. But if you don't draw the boundaries and you turn into a big, messy, raging ball of anger, then you're letting everybody down, including your kids and everyone else. So I think figuring out a reasonable schedule that you can actually accomplish. And if it has to be alternating years, if you have to say, okay, this year we're going to do it this way, and next year we're going to do it the other way, you have to do what makes sense for you, and then I think everything else falls into place. Although it's harder to do that than saying.
Right, definitely. Now, for me, like my biggest struggle is now I'm supposed to have both of my kids on the same day, the same holidays. So that makes it easy because it's like, okay, now I have both my kids on Christmas. But now my daughter's mother is like, well, I want to have her Christmas Eve night, and I'll drop her off in the morning. Well, the problem with that, I want her to wake up Christmas morning at my house. So it's like, is it really worth the fighting with her to have that? And there's certain situations that it's like, I'll give in for this. But this particular, Christmas to me, that's the main thing, is waking up and like, oh, Santa's come, and or whatever, however you celebrate. But for me, that's what we do. It's like Santa's here. He was here last night, and waking up and all the gifts being there that weren't there the night before, and that excitement that comes from that. And even when my son, he knows there's no Santa, so, but there's still that excitement of like, like what's going to be under the tree, because he has no clue. So, but trying to coordinate that with them and without having the fight, or if there's going to be a fight, saying this is at least a fight worth fighting, as opposed to some of the others that, I'll give here and take there.
So maybe what we need is some guidance on just maybe this just isn't just about holidays. This is about, how do you go through life with a little bit of clarity so that people who are coming along with you, feel sane and secure and also understand that they need to be a little bit flexible. So I wonder what it's like, with maybe the thing that should precede the holiday is what's our expectation of this holiday. And what's one thing? So I was writing this article on how to put the happy back in happy holidays when I did finally get it back after I lost it. But one of them was how do we each identify some element of the holiday that's really special for us and then try and include that for them. So it's not that from the beginning of time, like right at Thanksgiving the Christmas music is on and this entire season has to be happy holidays and everybody's all stressed out by it. What if the recommendation is pick something that makes this holiday amazing for you? So dads, as dads, we need to do that too, because we can't get ignored in this, trying to make it right for everybody. But what if we were to ask everybody else and say, so what's that one thing? Maybe there'll be more. We'll try and do as many of them as we can, but let's get that one thing that's really important for you. And my family, it's Christmas Eve. All the other stuff, the parties or whatever, I'm not going to get stressed out whether I go to them or don't go to them and buy gifts for this and that. But we all get together on Christmas Eve because that's the one, that's the place, that's the time where this whole holiday has all of its magic for us. And I wondered if we started asking our kids that, we might help them have a more reasonable perspective of a holiday instead of thinking it's nonstop presence and good time, because the moment it's not exactly like that, they get all disappointed and down, instead of realizing that's not even a reasonable way to look at it.
Well, I don't know if it's always the holiday time too, Jay. Oh, as I kicked the table. When when my son and I first moved into our townhome years ago, we wanted to kind of make our own traditions and our own little uniqueness, and it wasn't around the holiday time. So I would ask him, all right, what is something that we can do that we can kind of create as our own? And so one of the things we created is called the I'm not going to make my bed day. So once a weekend we wouldn't make our beds. I would always make sure we made our beds, but that was one of our little unique traditions. And then that tumbling into, like Chris was talking earlier about blended families, we were putting up holiday decorations last weekend. So now, my son and I had our own little traditions. We had my last year in our townhome, we had a little Charlie Brown Christmas tree, and we decorated it. So this year he wanted to make sure that on the tree in the house that we had the ornaments from that tree put onto the Christmas tree. So, I think it's not just the holidays. I think it's all year round coming up with unique traditions and things, the quality versus quantity type things.
I think that's right, Tommy. And going back to something that Jay said, it's about feeling that magic in whatever the context is, whether it's Christmas or another holiday or somebody's birthday or some special occasion. It's how we want to feel at that particular time. And so if we can focus on how we want to feel and the things that actually make us feel that way or help us feel that way, and then bring those things in, I think we can actually sort of be happier and generate those feelings. Sometimes it's easier to generate those feelings than we think. We may not need all of the external things. You may not need all the presents. You may not need all the stuff actually to make some of that magic happen. It could be a simple tradition or something that you do with your kids that just puts a smile on everybody's face.
And it might be different for each kid.
Right.
and part of it is just how do you create the space that they get to have a voice. So the family puts together a plan on what's going to get, the holiday, what's going to make the holiday special, and maybe that's what you call it. What's going to make the holiday special? And one of the things I was trying to write about in this, how to put the happy back, is how do you not listen to what the rest of the world says? You have to do this, otherwise you have a lousy holiday. You have to buy gifts, and you have to do this, and everybody needs a gift card, and the Christmas tree has to look like this, and there's neighbors that are battling each other for how many lights they can put on their house. And okay, so how do we talk our families through? That's not what we do. We look at the holiday, or in fact, Tommy, I love your point that says, look, a holiday is nothing more than a shorter version of what we should be doing in life anyway.
There you go.
Right? I mean, we should be celebrating all the time, and we should develop these opportunities to just show up big to life all the time. And sometimes the flashlight, or the magnifying glass gets put on a holiday. But I think there's a great opportunity for us to look at the world and say, of everything you're sending me, what do I want? And let me cull out the things that I don't want. So I don't want my family a wreck or spending money that they don't have. So, I have 3 daughters, 2 are married. Trust me, there's nothing I need. So there's really no reason to buy me anything. I'm so looking forward to going out. We're all going out to brunch and a movie as our event this year, because they're saving for, with starting a family, and one couple wants to put a garage in their house, and they don't need to be worried about trying to buy me a Starbucks card. I got that. I can handle that myself. But so what is the pressure about having to give gifts, or the pressure of any part? How might we help our kids take the pressure off and just see the whole thing as opportunity? And that means you don't get to do it all, but you have to choose, and the things should be fun and enjoyable so that it doesn't stress you out.
I think that's. I think the traditions piece is a powerful one for, I think, especially for blended families. And the reason I say that is because I think if each family can have their own tradition. I think about our traditions. We always have Christmas Eve at my dad's house and my stepmom's. And one of the things that we do is, as adults, is we don't give each other gifts. What we do is we take the time to write a very heartfelt card. And I'm talking like we usually take a couple pages. We really type up a lot of things. We take time to reflect on the entire year and what it was like and what we were thankful for. And then our kids, they don't get any more. We've made it a rule that they don't get any more than 3 gifts per year. Reason being is because I think you get so many gifts, and especially kids, nowadays, and probably when we grew up too, so many gifts, and then it's like the focus of the holidays are the gifts. So, we're more focused on, the togetherness, the words that we put on paper, the words that we express to each other, sitting around the dinner table, and then it's not so much about the gifts. And I think when I think what we've really tried to do is make sure that every year we have Christmas, that the kids have that expectation that they only get 3 things, and really what they're thankful for is the people that are around for that holiday.
Well, Larry, what you've done there is you've taken the feeling that gifts can give people, which is a feeling of being validated, a feeling of being appreciated, a feeling of being understood when somebody gets something that they want, but you've removed the gift, from or most of the gifts from that equation, because in the letters and the things that you're describing, you're validating, you're showing that you understand the members of your family and the people you love. You're expressing your care for them, and that's really what this is all about. So when we can take those wonderful feelings of being validated and appreciated and remove the consumerism from them, that's when I think we're really succeeding.
Absolutely.
And these are hard things to fight with. I mean, our kids and all of us get such pressure from the outside about, we don't want our kids to be disappointed. So, we have this pressure to go out and deliver on, I don't want my kids to go to school and, and they've come in with, things that they needed. They got underwear and they got hats and scarves. you know, and these other kids are wearing new jewelry and other things, and you know, so we got all this pressure as a dad saying, well, I don't want our kids to be disappointed, but I think that's really an important thing for us to help them understand, why are we celebrating in the first place. Larry, I love what your family does. I mean, I would love, for all the writing we do, that's something we don't do. I love that. I'm definitely going to bring that one to the family and say, look, what I want most is for you to say, look at your world and find out what is the gift that's here already, and what might we celebrate with that, and just draw attention to it because maybe we haven't seen it. And you know, we're finding as a big Italian family, you know, I have 5 siblings, our favorite thing in the world is hanging out with each other. You know, we get there as early as we can on this Christmas Eve day so that we can spend all day cooking together, so we can spend all night eating together. And it's a night we don't want to end. And the kids, the next generation, is watching the 6 of us do this, saying, when's it our turn? It's your turn now, pull your chair over. And that allows us, I think, to start building a tradition, but it's also trying to help them see that no matter what the rest of the world says you should, have to, must do on a holiday, we say, no, we close the door, we have the key, we let in what we want and we don't let in what we don't want. And here's our definition of what a really great Christmas is, Christmas Eve is.
That's one thing that, you know, my mom's family, she's got 9 brothers and sisters.
Whoa.
So yeah, like it's a pretty big family, and we're really close on that side of my family. So every year, all the aunts and uncles, or you know, brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, get together at somebody's house, and that alternates year to year. You know, it floats between about 4 or 5 of them. And what's so fun about that is we all get together, and it's not at all about gift buying or anything. It's more about eating, you know, breaking bread as a family. So that's fun. Then, you know, nice, everybody brings a dish. It's not too much work on the person hosting because they cook a few items and everybody else cooks a few items, and the next thing you know, you've got a gigantic buffet, you know, of food to feed everybody with still plenty of leftovers. And then we play cards and just have a good time, just spending, you know, time with each other. For a few years, we did a what do they call it? I can't think of the name of the game, but it was like an elephant gift or something. So you just buy like a generic gift.
White elephant.
Yeah, white elephant. So then, yeah, we played a game with it. So everybody put their name, that brought a gift, would put their name in a hat, and we'd sit in a circle, and you could pick a gift, or if somebody else had a gift, you could steal their gift. Right. And a gift could only get stolen like 3 times. And so that was kind of a fun thing that went on for a few years, but then kind of fizzled out. But
yeah, the good old white elephant.
Yeah, it was,
yeah.
Yeah, it was just a good time.
It was last year's Christmas gift that nobody wanted that gets repurposed and repackaged.
Right.
It's the same old candle from Bed Bath & Beyond that keeps getting recycled into a new gift.
That's right.
Well, what kind of started happening is they would buy a bunch of gag gifts.
Yeah.
And so, like, there was this little dog, Humphrey was the name of this dog, and it would, like, attach to stuff, and then it had a little mechanism that made it hump. That's the name Humphrey. So every year it was like, ooh, who's going to get Humphrey this year, you know?
Hey, you know, there's one more tradition that we do with my dad that has, I mean, my kids have just loved it. It's just something that they really look forward to. And that's actually, we're doing it not this weekend, but next, and it's gingerbread house making night.
Ooh.
And we usually do this 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas, and literally my kids look forward to it all year long. And we have done this with them ever since, I mean, they were babies. And so we take an entire night, you know, we buy all the kits, and then we have everyone kind of chips in on all the, you know, cheap candy and the icing and all that stuff, and we have like just a really good time. And the kids especially just love it because they get to make their own house with their own, you know, little figurines, and I think they probably really enjoy all the candy that they get to eat on top of it. So, but it's been a great tradition, and not to poke fun at my dad, but my dad is a super competitive guy, and he will literally research gingerbread houses on the internet for like a month beforehand just to come up with like the most elaborate possible thing that he could do for a gingerbread house night.
Yeah, he's the Frank Lloyd Wright house.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's fun.
We did that too growing up, Larry, and I saw one on Facebook the other day. It was a trailer. It was called like White Trash Christmas Bread House or something, gingerbread house, and it was just like a single wide trailer. It was hilarious.
No, Larry. Though I mean, it really is the little things that kids and like you're saying, even your dad enjoy doing, and it's funny you say that because we have two kits that we didn't get a chance to use last year are sitting upstairs in our kitchen, and the kids are looking forward to doing that again in next week. I think next week or coming up soon. But yeah, I mean it's those little things that the kids really enjoy that they don't really, you don't think about. Again, back to, a lot of you guys are talking about, the pressure of buying the right gifts and getting, the most cool thing on the block and keeping up with the Joneses and all that. But it's those little things that really kids love. And again, 'cause a lot of us adults, I love building those gingerbread houses and accidentally putting the stuff on my finger and eating it. I mean, it's all fun.
You know what? I think that the thing that it reminds us is if we tune in and listen to our kids after a holiday, they'll tell us what worked and what didn't work. And we should take some pretty good mental or written notes saying, we worked really hard on all of these things, so which ones do they keep talking about? And the ones that keep talking about maybe guide us a little bit about what really resonates with them from a tradition standpoint. Now, we loved when our cousins get together, or we loved making the houses, or we loved going out. Our tradition one year was to go out and find our tree in the woods and cut our tree down. And they talked about that for year and year. And so one year when we went to buy a tree, they're like, really, we're going to buy a tree? We're not going to go out into the woods and pretend we're pioneers. Okay, so that was when the Oregon Trail game was big. My kids are older. So it was, we had to ford the brook and we had to fight cholera and we had to do all the things that were in the game, but it was part of the whole concept of bringing a live tree in rather than going to Home Depot and picking out what you get for $19.95. So, but they talked about it a lot, and that then I think starts to give us some guidance so that we look like stars and we pay attention.
I think the big thing is that connection, right? Like, I know as a single dad, having my kids part-time, a lot of times it's like you want to create memories for them. And you think, okay, well, if I plan this awesome vacation or if I buy them this sweet, awesome present, that's going to create all these memories. But looking back at my childhood, the things that stand out the most for me, like, because my dad wasn't around very much, living in Europe for 6 years, I only got to see him twice out of the year. And the thing that stuck out the most wasn't traveling Europe and seeing all these crazy places and these cool castles and stuff. It was sitting around playing board games. One night, it was just, I don't know why, but I mean, it was literally one night out of 6 years we sat and played board games. But that sticks in my mind more than any of the other stuff that we visited and the beach house that we had on the Mediterranean. All that stuff is like a blur compared to that night of playing board games. So
yeah, I mean, not to get off the subject of the holidays too much, but I mean, I think Chris, that's a very true statement. I think a lot of times, like even as we look back on our own childhoods, some of our most fondest memories are it wasn't going to Six Flags, and maybe it wasn't an extravagant vacation. I mean, I look back on my childhood, and I remember the best memories I had with my grandfather was standing right next to him with a fishing pole. I mean, that wasn't anything elaborate, but it was just something that we did together, and one of the things that I do, especially with my 6-year-old, he's big into creative stuff. So he likes to color. Like the kid will literally sit there and color for hours, or he'll do puzzles. And this past weekend, last weekend, we went to Starbucks together and did a puzzle for about an hour and a half. And he was like a totally different kid this whole week. It was almost like that just sort of filled him up so much, the fact that we did that one-on-one thing just together. And in my mind, it's nothing elaborate. I mean, I think I paid $2 for a cup of coffee, and he had a cake pop that was like $1.50. But it was nothing elaborate. But it was the time. It was the time, and that we got to spend doing something together that was different.
Time and engaging with him on his level in his activity that he chose. That's so important to them, and it's so easy for us to say in a minute, or yeah, I'll help you with that, or I'll get to that, or to feel like I don't really want to get down on my knees and work with those puzzle pieces or whatever. You go play by yourself, and I'll come take care of that in a little while. But when we do actually move into that moment and we're present with them on their level, doing something that they love to do or that they've asked us to do with them, it does fill them up in a really amazing way.
What that makes me think too is, I think the thing that they appreciate most, and maybe this is just a mental note for us as dads, is that we make space and time for them. And that space and time for them, I remember, so I had a great dad who did a lot of great things, but I do remember one thing about him was that if we wanted time with him, we had to do his hobbies. So, I went into stamp collecting and gardening because that's the only way I could hang out with my dad. Those were two of his big hobbies. Stamp collecting never lasted, but gardening is still a hobby. But I remember that, that was just the way it had to be. And I find that I'm a little bit different, other than I find that I spend more time with my daughters when we're in the garden than anything. So they, again, are maybe doing some of the hobbies that I have, trying to find time with me, which is so a big light bulb just went off for me. But I think creating the space so that we get to have a conversation with our kids about what matters. And I do know one of the things that we had as we came up to New Year's Day was in our house we had New Year's resolutions. This was the way that a big Italian family kept the kids out of the mall and off the streets. Was what are you supposed to be working on that are part of your objectives for 2000 whatever or whatever the year was. And so my dad had these 3 R's that we had to go through. He said review, rethink, respond. Review what happened last year. Rethink what's going to happen this year. Respond what are you going to do this year. And that process, or making the time for that, allowed us to have our own voice. There was space and our own voice. And I wondered if maybe, because a lot of us don't make time like that anymore, I wonder if that's really valuable for us as dads. That we intentionally create time and space, and in that time and space, turn the microphone over to our kids. What are you thinking about? What matters to you? What's interesting to you? How might we do this? Take it all in and then decide how do we help.
It's really interesting because, what I was just talking about earlier is that sometimes we resist when our kids want to pull us into the moment. But sometimes our kids resist when we want to pull them into that moment. So, and I don't know, Jay, but when your dad was doing that, maybe there were also feelings, do we have to do the resolution? But he was creating a tradition for your family, and really that's exercising leadership. That's saying, I'm going to, as the leader, define the way that this goes down, and I'm going to bring people into this moment, and maybe not everybody is going to like it right then, but you know what? They're going to appreciate it. They're going to look back on it and appreciate it as something that we all did together at that time. So I think it works both ways. We have to be more flexible moving into our children's moments, and then we have to encourage flexibility in them. Hey, come on, move into this moment with me.
No, I think you're right entirely, and I didn't really appreciate the wisdom of that process of staying on your road in life until, much of it as I was comparing my life against other people, saying, well, how come they don't know this about themselves, and how come, they're always getting in trouble, and how come their grades aren't very good? It was they didn't have any structure at home, and it isn't that life was so structured. It had to be is that in fact, I love the word that you used, Thomas, that my folks acted like leaders. This is our family, and here's how we build the roadmap. Now, in it, there's room for you to have a voice, but it will be within this framework.
Right.
And, when kids don't know what they don't know. So to give them, how do you want to do this without any kind of guidance, overwhelms them. So on my podcast last week was this wonderful guy named Tom Morris, who's a really great practical philosopher, and he was talking about the painter Mondrian, who said the hardest brushstroke for a painter is on the blank canvas. You know, once you ruled out some things by putting some color on the canvas, you already have eliminated some things. So when we give our kids, so what do you want to do? Sometimes that's too much for them to process. So if we were to say, look, here are 5 buckets you get to pick from. Of these 5, what do you want to do? We just start to give them a little bit of guidance, and then maybe from that we determine how much we give or don't give. It struck me bold saying, wow, we want to give our kids all these choices, but when we do, they go into shutdown mode. They don't know what to do. So maybe holidays are overwhelming them as well.
That is so on target. You know, your child says, I want a snack. Well, what do you want? Well, I don't know. You know, what do you have? You know,
Right.
whereas if you say, you know, would you like some carrots or some this, then you're sort of giving them a choice between A and B. Maybe they'll choose A or B.
Yeah, so the holidays is, you know, that you can pick 1 or 2 things from this list of 5. Might be, how do I start to show you 2 things? One is, these are our choices because maybe we have some financial restrictions and time restrictions, but I don't want you to be subjected to the research. So Tom Morris was saying, look, there's been some research that somebody did. If you are looking at an aisle in a grocery store and you see 100 jars of jelly to pick from, you walk right by. Too many. If you see 10, then you'll stop and you'll pick. So having too many choices, and then we look at our kid and say how ungrateful that we gave you a total blank slate and you couldn't come back with anything. You know, I don't know that we helped them. So maybe creating the space, creating some choices, and creating the dialogue allows us to guide them into having a happy holiday, a happy tradition, or maybe, you know, that's just our way of going through life.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Tommy.
I'm just gonna
I would say, or not.
You know, it just goes back to, you know, quality versus quantity. I mean, like you're saying, Jay, you know, giving our kids too many choices, or like Thomas was saying, giving them either this or that. I mean, real quickly, my son had a basketball game yesterday, and I show up, and he goes, Dad, I didn't eat lunch. Well, what do you want me to do about it now? He goes, well, can you go run the Subway and go get me a sandwich? And this is like 20 minutes before his game. I'm like, no, you're not going to have a sandwich before your basketball game. I said, what I can do is go get you this. Oh, okay. So if we lay it out to them sometimes, maybe you hope they'll, you know, learn sooner or later. But again, it just goes back to the whole quality versus quantity. I mean, I think going back to our original statement about the holidays, I think we overwhelm ourselves and then we overwhelm our kids.
Yep.
All at the same time.
Yep. Well-intentioned. We want this to be happy, so here are the gifts and here are the parties and here's the food and here, and all of a sudden they're in overload. They don't know what to do with it, and we're worn out, we're broke, and we're like, why did we do this?
Right?
Well, isn't that where that
different?
isn't that where that whole, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
You're good.
no, isn't that where that whole like the you know, give me, you know, attitude kind of comes from, that our society kind of has now, that, you know, we expect these things, and we've become this consumer-driven society because we think that our kids have to have all of this stuff, but without really looking at, to everybody's point today, you know, looking at what really matters, what's really impacting our kids. They expect to get the Game Boy or I don't know what's big now. It's probably not Game Boy, but that's what, when I was a kid, the Game Boy was a cool thing. I don't know if it's the PlayStation or whatever, but they expect that when the new gadget comes out, that's what they expect to get for Christmas, or whatever the hot toy is, that's what they expect to be getting. And, well, that's not what's really going to make them happy, because they're going to get that toy, they're going to play with it for 5 minutes, and then now what? What's next? What else you got for me? You know?
Yeah, I think I agree with that statement. It seems like everything that you've been saying, Chris, it makes me think about, you know, the actual Christmas day. and the gifts, and it almost seems like it's not the I don't want to say the kids don't appreciate new toys, but it almost seems like they tear into things so fast, and once they have opened it up and seen what it is, then they just want to get to the next thing. So no, it's like no matter how badly they wanted that thing, whatever it is, I don't know about a Game Boy. I mean, I'm thinking maybe it was probably Atari, but 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 I mean, they're just on to the next thing just to unwrap it, and then before you know it, they have so many things, and it's almost like they're almost a bit overwhelmed by it, you know. But it's like if you can like cut down on those things, that so many things to unwrap, it's almost like they appreciate maybe those 3 things or 3 or 5 things or whatever it is, maybe just a little bit more because they know, hey, you know, this is what I'm getting, and it's maybe less overwhelming for them.
I agree, and I want to go back to something Jay said about you want these moments to be happy, and this is a challenge that divorced fathers who have their kids part-time have, is you want all, because you will have limited interaction with your children, you want all those moments to be happy. You don't want any unhappiness, you don't want any conflict, you don't want any argument or grief, you just want it to be really nice and happy. And so I think there's a temptation to, one, sort of overdo it, to sort of, as you know, as one of you was saying before, kind of plan it out. You know, I've got this whole big special surprise for you, or this great thing that I'm going to do to make this moment. And the other is to give in to your kids when they're whining, when they're complaining, or you know, like you don't want to crack down too much because you don't want to spoil that 2-hour or 3-hour window that you have with them. So I think it's really challenging when you have part-time parenting you want to try to make the most out of that time, but you also want it to be true parenting time and not just, you know, hey, I'm dad and I'm here just to make you happy by, you know, taking you to Toys R Us or whatever it is.
You know, Thomas, I am so guilty of that. I mean, early in my divorce, that was my mentality because it broke down to it was like 46 hours I had with my son Connor, and yeah, I tried to, you know, make that weekend a very special weekend. But you're right, it is so hard in that limited time not to be the traditional Disneyland dad of going, well, let's go do this and do this and then you're overwhelming them instead of just, let's just spend some time together. What do you want to do? What can we do? And back then, Thomas, I was living in hotels every other weekend when I'd come home because I had no place to live. And so I always tell the story of how my son loved being in the hotels. I mean, he had a couple of criteria. You know, the hotel had to have room service, it had to have a hot tub, it had to have a pool, all that stuff. But those were great memories. I mean, those were little things that you don't think about, but you know, once I got into my townhome, then he and I could start creating our own memories, and then from there, then we can I can start phasing out the Disneyland dad aspect because we actually had a home. But you're right, Thomas, it is so hard, you know, being, you know, in that divorced dad role where you only, in my situation, only having my son, you know, every other weekend. You want to be that dad. You want to be the one that's constantly, you know, overwhelming them. And unfortunately, you learn the hard way that that's not what they want, really.
Absolutely, and you know, I was guilty of it too. Not only with, you know, giving toys and things like that, but in terms of sort of backing off on, you know, some of the discipline that really probably would have benefited them a little bit more. And I think, you know, if you measure yourself in terms of the other parent, like, you know, you're saying to yourself, I don't want my kid to go back and feel unhappy. You know, oh, how was your weekend with Dad? Oh, well, you know, we got into a fight. We did this. You know, I cried or whatever. You want your child, you know, to go back. Oh, I had a great weekend with Dad. Everything was wonderful. You know, Dad's great. And so, but if you can bring the focus back to, you know, set that stuff aside and just what type of interaction do you really want to create with your child, then I think that makes it a little bit easier.
Well, yeah, you made a really good point there too, because I think a lot of times we lose sight on the fact that there is a lot of work that is involved in taking care of the kids on the day-to-day basis, and try to just focus primarily on the fun stuff. And I was talking to a girlfriend of mine. She just recently went through a divorce, and she's like, it's not fair because their dad gets to take them and go to all these fun things and do all these fun things, and here I am stuck, doing the homework and getting after them about this and grounding them and all that. And it's like, well, I had, kind of coach her, is like, you realize, like, eventually their relationship is going to suffer because he's not going to be able to fulfill all those things that they're looking for with these good times and these, Disneyland dad moments, because they're not so sustainable. You can't sustain that kind of relationship with somebody without going bankrupt or, it's impossible. And the real relationship comes in those rough times, that, helping them with their homework and, going through all those struggles. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. And to bring Larry into this, I mean, the one thing I learned, unfortunately I learned the hard way, was that taking my time with my son for granted, because you would think, being a married couple is, for better or for worse, till death you part, and next thing you know, you're facing a divorce lawyer. And so, one thing I highly recommend, I know, Larry, you're way ahead of us, but is that, you don't take those times for granted. I mean, you sound like, the traditions that you've already started, your kids are going to take those traditions and they're going to move forward when they're parents as well.
Yeah, I definitely have to give my wife the credit for that one. She grew up.
Okay, then go get her and you get off this show. What?
That's right. Yes, come here. No, she grew up in a great family with a ton of traditions, and her mom and dad, I think, have been married for 35 or 36 years, but just a family that has done nothing but do traditions, and traditions are extremely important to them. And I didn't grow up with a whole lot of traditions at all, really, and she was actually a person that has taught me, the importance of traditions. And my hope is that the kids the kids do it as well. So, yeah.
Look at this cute little guy.
Speaking of which, this is my 1-year-old.
I love those pictures you post on Facebook with him. That's adorable. And then
he only weighs like 87 pounds, so.
There we go.
One thing that can be liberating when we're facing those challenges of, do I need to be Disneyland dad, or, can I discipline them? Am I going to spoil my time with them? Is try to think about what your job is as a father. And sometimes in the unpleasant moments with my kids, I'll remind them that I am doing my job. It's my job to protect you. It's my job to help you succeed in school. It's my job to make sure that you grow up with good values and all of this. This is my job. I'm trying to do it. I need you to help me do it. And the flip side of that is, it's not my job to make you happy. It really isn't. I mean, I want my children to be happy. I love it when they're happy. But, I am more responsible for their well-being and for raising them to be good people than ultimately for their happiness.
Wow, yeah, absolutely. That's a powerful statement, because you're absolutely right. It isn't, and you hear that all the time. Like, it's not my job to be your friend, right?
Right.
I'm your father, and that's so true. But we don't, especially in the divorce dad situation.
Right.
It's like we want to be their friend,
right?
But
and we want to make them happy because we feel like the divorce has made them so unhappy. You know, we have to compensate for that.
Yeah, it's a hard balancing act.
So creating opportunities for them to be happy, yes, but ultimately being responsible for their happiness, no.
Right. Well, I think that's, a lot of that connecting comes into play. So doing those things, like I think you said it, I know Jay says it often, is, meeting them at their level or, where they're at, right? So, for example, my son loves military, loves guns, and reads about World War II all the time. I hate guns. I don't like it's not that I don't like the military. I just don't want to be a part of it, right? Like, thanks for fighting that war and stuff, but I'm cool. I don't want to get shot at. But he's all about that stuff. So last year for his birthday, I was trying to think of what to get him, and so I took him to the gun range. I was like, well, I met him at his level, and did something that kind of stepped out of my comfort zone. And I had a good time. But it was definitely not something that I wanted to do. It was more for him. And so for this birthday, I got him an paintball gun. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go paintballing with him. And again, it's like, I'm sure that paintballing is going to be fun, and I'll enjoy it, but I really don't like to get hurt. I'm kind of a sissy.
Have you ever been paintballing, Chris?
No.
I went once with my son a couple of years ago. And be sure you wear as much padding as you can, because it's fun as long as you're sort of doing the shooting, and as long as a pellet, maybe grazes your shoulder or whatever. But man, if you get hit with one like straight on, in the leg or the chest or whatever, I came back with 6 huge welts.
Right. So my buddies would show me, yeah, check it out, I went paintball, and I'm like, why is that fun?
And my son had welts too, but you know what? He loved it. He was not complaining.
Thomas, that's funny you say that. During the summer, the family that watches my son, they did that. They took him paintballing, and like you were saying, you got to have all the protection. Well, they didn't have, I guess, neck collars, and my son had 2 welts on the back of his neck, and he had the biggest smile on his face going, how cool is that, Dad? I'm like, but that's what kids love. I mean, again, it's not about overwhelming them. It's like all you guys are saying, getting on their level, and if that's what they want to do, go out there and, you know what, I hate to tell you this, Chris, go out and get a welt or 2. Your son is gonna love it. Going, yeah, look at Dad.
Celebrate it. Yeah, celebrate. Take a picture. Put it on Facebook.
There you go. I will. I'm gonna have to suck it up.
You're gonna have to not complain like a sissy. That's for sure.
I know. I could take it. I just prefer not to.
All right. You should tell us that, but you shouldn't say that to him.
Right. They're like, yeah, we're gonna do this because I'm a man.
I hope we get bruised. I hope I break an arm.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, Chris. This is a recorded show, so now everyone knows. And now it's out there.
The truth.
That's right. We're so this weekend, and I'll post some pictures. I know I'm connected to. I think Tommy, you're the only one I'm not connected to on Facebook, but we're doing an American Ninja Warrior dad and kid event.
Oh, cool.
Where we actually have a gym here in the St. Louis area. I think it's the only one in the Midwest, from what I've heard. It's an American Ninja Warrior training camp, and we're doing a dad and a kid American Ninja Warrior event. And I think I've done five events now over the past 18 months, and this one by far sold out the fastest. So it was, and we're getting T-shirts made and everything, but yeah, it'll be a good memory for these kids, good memory for these dads, and they'll have T-shirts, after the event's done, and so it'll be good. I think the kids will enjoy it, and it's so funny though. The kids are so pumped about it, and the dads. I mean, I think I've got a call from every single one of them saying, "Well, do we? So do we train for this?" No. It's like, if anything, we'll be lucky if we can do like maybe one of those things. It's more just to get out and have a good time, horse around the obstacles. But yeah, it'll be a good time.
That is sweet. I saw your post on Facebook about that, and I'm like, man, I wish they had one of those around here. Now I can work out. I'll go do that kind of stuff, but getting shot at and no, I'm cool. Like Boy Scouts, I like capture the flag, like playing in the dark, flashlight tag type stuff. I'm cool with that, playing in the dark. But getting shot at and getting injured in that type of set, nah, I'm cool. I'm cool. But well, I think we're hitting about 50 minutes here, so this was a good show. I really enjoyed our conversation. It was awesome. Everybody down for next week?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Good. All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. And I didn't do a dad on the street this week. I'm thinking about making that just a separate segment altogether. So we'll see how that goes. I like the development that we have here. So good talking to everybody, and we'll see you next week.
All right.
See you guys.
Thanks,
All right. Bye.